Hope you're having a great day as we continue to celebrate all the amazing people here on the Ricky Matthews Show who are working so hard in the trenches to make Mississippi such a great place. Coming to you from the Citizen Banks studio, and thrilled to have them as a sponsor of this show. Hey, we've got a great guest today, so no big speeches to give. I want to jump right into our conversation with Commissioner Andy Gipson, who is the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce, and someone I love checking in with from time to time just to see what the latest is in a world that's really important to us and really important to this state. Andy, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great. How you doing today, Ricky?
I'm doing fantastic. As you and I were chatting, go ahead.
Great to be back with you. I always enjoy visiting and catching up. Appreciate what you do on the show.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much. Listen, as we were chatting, you and I both love the outdoors. You posted a picture from your farm of a food plot with some deer in it. But it is great to stay connected to land in so many different ways. I mean, your whole life is sort of dedicated to that, isn't it?
It really is. It's something that I spent a lot of time thinking about during this hunting season, and just being appreciative for the land. We are blessed as a state in so many ways. Our land is the most productive soil in the world in terms of agriculture, our food production, fiber production, even our wood products. We're blessed as a state, and then of course we get the added benefit of the wildlife that goes along with that, and the stewardship that we have to care for the land and make it better and improve habitat for wildlife, as well as the fact is agriculture is the biggest part of Mississippi's economy. So I mean, it all goes together, and you can't get too close to the land. The land is something very special about our land and our home called Mississippi.
Well, listen, of course, this is something you and I have chatted about before, but when you think about 51% of Mississippians live in rural areas, I mean, you come from, in fact, I think you've referred to what you bring to the table as rural sensibilities, but as a farmer and a preacher, or at least a minister, a lawyer, farmer state representative, you bring to the table an understanding of the incredible geographic diversity of this state. And it's something, man, first of all, it's what sort of defines Mississippi, but it also defines the people of Mississippi. And it's something to not only uphold, but it's something to protect, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. I have enjoyed traveling our state since I've been commissioner. I traveled before then as well when I was in the legislature. The being commissioner has given me the opportunity to be in all 82 counties, and every county, every town, every small town across the state has got something special, and our people are blessed because we are such a diverse state. I mean, whether you're on the Gulf Coast or way up north Mississippi or on the river or on the east side of the state, there's something unique in every location, and I think we at the bottom of it all, we are in our hearts, we are country people. Mississippians are, and we do have some urban areas, but I think even in those areas, we're proud to be right here at home in rural Mississippi.
Well, listen, as you've helped me understand, and as getting close to really who are a major farming family in the Mississippi Delta, I've come to appreciate that, first of all, Mississippi has an incredibly important role from a farming point of view, really a worldwide impact, what we're doing here. But, when people think about farming in Mississippi, they may think a little bit too much about what farmers are doing for Mississippi or what farmers are doing for the United States. But farming is a global economy. And we're, in fact, when we're talking about energy or oil, it's the same kind of thing. Farming's very similar. The farming guys that I know, it was a tough year last year from a pricing point of view. When you think about, and of course, by the way, when people think of you as the Commissioner of Agriculture, there's a commerce part of that it's much deeper than that. We'll get into some of that before we get off the show today. But when you think about the farming community in Mississippi and the really tough global situation that we're in, how do you talk about it with people?
Well, I think one thing that everyone seems to understand, especially after the elections of last year, is that these are tough times. I mean, everything is so expensive. Inflation is probably the number one reason that Donald Trump is going back in the White House next week, and I'm so thankful and grateful for that. But overnight, this is not going to be fixed. But the high cost of inflation those costs have affected farmers in a worse way, really, than anyone else. Yes, it's affected consumers. Everybody's paying more to buy groceries and everything else, but farmers are paying a whole lot more, like twice as much. At the same time, the perfect storm of, you mentioned the global situation, the perfect storm of, a trade war with China. We've got wars going around the world, and the lower demand for our products at the same time as we have higher production. So it's a matter of supply and demand, and those high prices have not been any benefit to the farmers at all, because the prices for commodities, whether you're talking about cotton, corn, soybeans, row crops especially, but a lot of products, those commodity prices are low, far lower than the cost of producing them. So 2024 was one of the worst years for farmers on record, and it actually was the worst of about 2 or 3 in a row of tough years. So we have a lot of production, we have a lot of product, we have a lot of excess grain, for example, and it's not being sold overseas, it's not being consumed here locally, so it's stockpiling. Lots of supply, lots of production, high cost of production, low price to benefit the farmers. And so you saw the reports last year for 2024, farm incomes were expected to drop 25%. I mean, that's not sustainable for most farm operations in the country. And it's not just Mississippi, but it's all over America, to the extent that about 300,000 farms were predicted not to continue in 2025. That's why there was such a push at the end of the year for Congress to pass this farm relief package, and I'm glad they did. But we still yet don't know what the full extent of that will be and how much benefit it'll be. But we were looking at losing 300,000 farms nationwide because of the tough times of inflation, because of the low prices, and we have gotten some relief from Congress, but it remains to be seen how much of that is actually going to help, and how many farmers will say, yeah, it's worth it to put another crop in the ground. It's a huge deal, and it's a systemic problem, a global problem that we've got to find solutions to. On top of everything I just said, we have a worse trade deficit that we've had in the history of America, I think, the last 50 years. So you can thank the prior administration for getting us in that situation. We're not selling our products as much as we used to or should be overseas. And that's something I know Donald Trump and his team are going to be working on. But it's been the perfect storm, and it's created some of the most difficult conditions in history for our farmers here in America and in Mississippi.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you and I talked about Ukraine and how significant their global agriculture contributions were, you would have thought at a point in time that Mississippi was actually in a good position to fill some of those gaps. And it just doesn't necessarily work that way, does it?
Well, it doesn't, because, that's one of the main sources of fertilizer. So you saw all the fertilizer, potash prices jump sky high, and if our farmers have had to eat all those costs, and there's no one else to pass them on to. They're going to get whatever the markets pay at the particular time. So, we have the blessing of our farmers who are resilient and who will persevere and will get through this. And we are not by any means, I don't want anyone to panic that we're going to starve to death or anything in America, because we have way abundant supplies. But when it comes to making a living, farmers are in the crosshairs of this inflationary pressures and high interest rates on top of that. Even to get a bank to loan money for improvements or for equipment, it's just not sustainable. And so we really made a push, and I know folks like Farm Bureau Other farm groups made a push for Congress to step up. The Farm Bill was allowed to expire back in October. That Farm Bill it's kind of become a household phrase, but most people don't know really what it means. The Farm Bill is basically it's the overall national policy for farm policy and agricultural and food policy in the country. It expired in October, and so that left a lot of farmers with a lot of uncertainty. We're basically begging Congress to pass it. They did pass the extension, and when they did that, they gave a little bit of help for the farmers to get through another year. So we're gonna be watching that carefully in 2025.
When we come back on the other side with Andy Gipson, the commissioner, Mississippi Commissioner for Agriculture and Commerce, we'll continue the conversation around farmers. We'll talk a little bit more about the other areas of responsibility he has, and we'll go from there. We'll see you after this break.
Thank you.
Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We're spending time with Andy Gipson, the Commissioner for Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. When we went to break, we were just talking about the farmers and the dilemma of the Mississippi farmers, the fact that we live in a global world and events around the world impact what happens here in Mississippi. You know what's sad about the conversation we were having about the higher costs of doing farms, the higher interest rates, all that stuff, after having a really, really tough, 2023. In 2024, we had some strategic rain here and there. And, of course, there was a lot of water pumping going on. But in the farms that I'm familiar with, the soybeans, the corn, the cotton, they all did extremely well. I mean, the yield was good. Everything was good. And you look at that and you drive around the Mississippi Delta in the areas where I lease farms, and you see just what seems like prosperity. You really do. But then you say something to your farming friends, say, man, it looks like you're going to have a good year. And they say, man, prices are not anywhere near what they need to be. That's so disappointing. I don't know of any industry that has to deal with the elements of whatever God's going to bring you, the elements of inflation, the elements of what happens in China or Ukraine or any other industry that has to deal with, on a moment's notice, everything that you think is going to be hopeful and bright can be gloomy in a moment. It takes an incredibly resilient person to do that work, doesn't it?
It does. It really does. And the irony of it is, yes, we had a tremendous production year for agriculture in Mississippi. I mean, another huge record production, but it came at a time that the prices are so low because there's already excess product here domestically. So there's no benefit for the farmers from that excess production. So I think a lot of farmers here in January they're already making decisions what to do in 2025, what to plant, if to plant. I mean, there are a lot of farmers who are nearing retirement age. In Mississippi, I think half of the farmers could retire, if they wanted to. So you have that factor going on as well. Who's going to take this farm and keep it going? And it's a critical time for agriculture, but I don't want people to be depressed about it or to give up, because our farmers are not giving up. They're going to persevere. We've seen tough times before, and we'll get through this, and the sun will shine again. I think that there will probably be some adjustments that will be made in people's operations. And, long term, we've got some projects that have got to be done in terms of readjusting our trade internationally, finding new markets. I'm actually traveling to Panama, the Panama Canal in April. It's on my agenda for the year. And, we're getting more commerce flowing in different places. We can't just be relying on China like we have in the past. Obviously, that's what we take away from this. And they're not relying on us. They're doing their own thing. And we need to find a way to fill in those gaps in terms of markets.
Well, you mentioned, I know you are a big Trump supporter, and I think we're moving as a country in the right direction, and it's time for us to really bite the bullet and make some really tough decisions as a country, and I think we're moving in that direction. You mentioned the trade war with China, which has been ongoing. Things might actually get worse as it relates to that trade scenario. If that happens, do you believe once again that the farmers will be in the crosshairs to sort of the negative impact of that?
I think any continuing trade war with China is going to adversely affect our farmers in the short term. I know that Donald Trump has a plan. I have no doubt that he's going to work to negotiate a better deal for our farmers in terms of trade. But I do think everyone that I talk to is expecting, if these tariffs continue or if they get worse, it's going to make it harder for farmers. And so there are some strategic decisions that have to be made really fast by the Trump administration. I'll be going to D.C. in February, meeting with our new Ag Secretary, Brooke Rollins. She has a very keen understanding of the global nature of what's going on here, the threat that China is. But we have got to have some strategic policy changes and, less regulations. No one even talks about it, but regulatory costs are tremendous on farmers. Trying to comply with all the different rules and regulations that are coming out of EPA, that's got to be reversed, and it's not going to happen overnight. We've got to take a long view of this. It's not going to be an overnight fix. None of this will be, but we are moving the right direction.
It is interesting, and you mentioned the farmers that are retiring, and you look at the data across the United States. You and I have chatted about this before. There's been more focus on it now. There's got to be a lot more focus on it. But what's happening is farmers are nearing either their breaking point, and saying, I'm just not going to use this land for that purpose anymore, or if someone is, I'm going to sell it, or I'm retiring and I'm getting out of the business and I'm going to sell it. When you look at some of the per acre, what foreign countries have been willing to pay per acre for ag land in America, in Mississippi, it's unbelievable, man. I don't blame them for considering checking out.
Yeah, we just got a report. USDA came out with a new report for the year end, and another 50,000 acres sold and owned by foreign interests. And you know what? 40,000 acres in Mississippi are now solar farms, 40,000 acres, solar farms controlled by foreign countries or foreign companies in foreign countries. Places like the Cayman Islands, where that jumped off the report at me. I don't blame the farmers. I mean, they're sitting there. They're going to pay them 6 times, 7 times, 10 times what it's worth, and they're ready to retire anyway. So you can't blame the farmer in all this. But these are critical times for our country, for the future of American food security, and we better wake up. Well, I've been talking about this for a long time, and going to continue to talk about it because it's not going away. These investment companies swoop in. Nobody knows who owns them. They make a radical offer on a piece of property, and of course it sells quickly, exponentially higher than it would a few years ago, because land is valuable, because it is about food production and national security. Food security is national security.
Yeah, see, land with you probably know more about this than I do. Certainly you do, but just based on my limited knowledge, good irrigation land that had modern irrigation to it, where the land's been undulated properly with pads and all of that, was going for $4,000 or $5,000 an acre, and now it's going for $7,000, $8,000, maybe even more $1,000 an acre. One of the farms that I used to lease, I don't lease it anymore, but one of the farms I used to lease was sold to a conglomerate out of Germany. Now, does that conglomerate out of Germany really do business out of Germany, or is it some shell company that's fronting for the Chinese government? That's what we don't know, isn't it?
We just don't know. We really don't know. And even USDA will tell you we don't know. Now, I will say this. Our new Ag Secretary that Donald Trump has appointed, Brooke Rollins, she has her finger on the pulse of this issue. She came from the America First Policy Institute in Texas, and this is one of their key issues. So I know there's going to be a laser-like focus on this and making sure we protect our land against foreign threats. And I look forward to this and learn about it next month.
I'm just curious, when you think about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be just China. It could be any country that could be a potential threat for America. But when you think about an adversary, a potential significant adversary, actually, having the ability to come in and buy tens of thousands of acres of our farmland, Something about that seems wrong on just about every dimension.
It does. I mean, when you consider that we fought a revolutionary war, our forefathers and mothers fought a war to protect our land against foreign threats, and to say we are our own country, and here we are turning around, a couple of 100 years later, selling it to the highest bidder. It goes against everything, every fiber of my being as an American, as a Mississippian, and I think that it's going to have to be addressed, and Congress is really going to have to be the one to address it. What we have now is a reporting mechanism that really is only voluntary. We don't really know who's owning these properties that are being bought, and I think we may have a window of time in Congress to get something done to fix this for the long term.
So, Andy, when I think about it, and I think a lot about it, when you think about the things that need to be addressed in our country, from trade to the issue that you and I were just talking about around ag land, around redirecting resources of the federal government that are misdirected in so many different ways. I mean, it can be quickly overwhelming, the number of issues that need to be addressed. And as you well know, the squeaky wheel is going to get the attention, but there's a lot of wheels that are squeaking now. I think what we can only hope, you mentioned Rawlings a couple of times during this conversation, but you can hope that the people that he's bringing in to lead these various segments are ready to go, that they don't have to come in and spend 2 or 3 years getting up to speed, that he can rely on them, he can delegate to them, that they can bring smart people together to address issues so that we are not, unfortunately, beholden to a weakness in someone at the federal level, someone who's going to help us make sure that all of these dimensions that we need to address as a nation are going to get addressed. We'll give you an opportunity to address that when we get on the other side as we continue our conversation with Andy Gipson, who's the Mississippi Commissioner for Agriculture and Commerce. We'll see you after this. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show from the Citizens Bank Studio. We were just chatting with Andy Gipson, who's the Mississippi Commissioner for Agriculture and Commerce, about this administration comes in swinging. I mean, their battle plan for tackling issues that need to be tackled is very, very significant, with executive orders and putting smart people in each of these positions. And as it relates to today's conversation, what you don't want to see, Andy, is that agriculture get caught up in the tornado of all that, and the farmers end up, kind of holding the bag. What is that you have a tremendous responsibility working with ag commissioners across the country and whoever our federal team is going to be ultimately to make sure that doesn't happen. That's got to be really high on your list, I bet.
It is. We got to move fast. Now, Congress has until September 30th to pass a permanent farm bill. We've only got a patch in here for 1-year extension. We need to get that 5-year farm bill put in place as soon as possible. It does not need to become another political football. It has in the past. Farm bill has become a debate between, farmers on one side, and then the liberals have been trying to make it a food stamp program, welfare program on the other side. So we got to get this done for the critical needs of American agriculture. Get that piece done. But like I said a while ago off the air, I think the honeymoon is going to be real short. We've got just a very short period of time to get things moving, because there will be opposition on every aspect of what President Trump is trying to do. We saw it before. I can only imagine what we're going to see in terms of the opposition this go round. So, but he's got a lot of smart people, and these nominations have gone faster than ever before. They're already having hearings on some of them even before he's sworn in as president. So I think everyone gets it, how critical the time is of the essence here.
It's going to be so fascinating to watch. And I almost hesitate using the word fascinating because it almost sounds entertaining, because, the reason is that it's certainly going to be entertaining. But the reality is the stakes are so high. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Had they ever been higher?
No, they never have. They really never have. It's not an exaggeration to say that. It's a kind of make or break moment for our country and for the future of everything we cherish as a republic.
What's interesting, Andy, about you, and this is not typically a political conversation, but I have to ask you about this. Is you never wavered one time. You saw that Donald Trump had unique capacities to be able to push up against change efforts that needed to happen in this country. You saw that. You weren't. And by the way, you're a very smart guy. By all measure, you're on top of your game intellectually. You're not a spring chicken. You're not a wallflower. You saw something maybe some people didn't see early on, and you never wavered. What was it that made you so confident that we would be where we are right now?
Well, I really feel, I mean, just to be honest with you, I really believe that God has raised up Donald Trump. And I know he's got issues that people don't like, and there are some things that he does that I might not like. But you look at J.D. Vance; he was an anti-Trumper, and he came around to realize who Donald Trump is and what he loves this country so much. He loves America so much. He's willing to pay price after price after price. He's paid it personally. He's paid it financially. He's even almost lost his life, and yet he continues to fight. He's a fighter. And that's what I like about Donald Trump, and that's why I've always supported him. And I'm really looking forward to the next 4 years working closely with him and with this administration to get the right things done for America to get back on track. Biden has left us in such a mess. Things probably are going to get worse before they get better. But we're going to see the right result over a period of time, because Trump's going back in the White House. Have no doubt about it.
You know what's interesting to me, Andy, and of course you and I are getting up in age, and so we've seen many political cycles on the national level. But what happens when the spotlight gets on you is there's no running from it. So whatever flaws there might be, whatever issues you might have, whatever gaps in understanding or knowledge you might have, whatever odd personal characteristics you might have, whatever history you might have, it is all revealed almost simultaneously in the moment. And you never know how someone's going to, when they get put in that washing machine, they're either going to come out unable to go forward, really, or they're going to come out of it stronger than they were when they went in it. And that's describing J.D. Vance. I have never seen someone as young as him take that whirlwind of negativity and just come out of it stronger than he went in it. This guy has enormous capacity.
He does. He's a smart guy. It kind of came from out of nowhere from this vice president pick, to be honest with you. But the more I learned about him, the more I like him. And I'm really impressed that he's going to be there. And in the Senate, he's going to help guide that ship as well. So we're excited about this narrow window of time, but it's critical time. Day one, there'll be important things that will happen all the way through the next 4 years.
Well, listen, I saw a pollster, a renowned pollster recently, beginning already to put odds on J.D. Vance getting elected our next president. And some obviously have him going against the governor of California, which is why what we're seeing in California has such a political dimension to it. It's insanely important for so many different reasons. But that's the showdown that some are thinking is going to happen. And under that scenario, J.D. Vance wins that situation, but is relatively close. You're probably seeing the same thing, aren't you?
Yeah, they're going to be talking about that right out of the gate because, as you know, Donald Trump is term limited. So not only is it urgent for us to act, but who the next president's going to be is going to be a topic of discussion. I think it'll be interesting to watch that unfold. And I don't want to make any predictions, but I think certainly J.D. Vance has got the best opportunity of anybody that I know of to advance, play his cards right. If we get things done, if we actually get things done and get this ship turned around the right way, I think it'll be a good thing for J.D. Vance's future.
Hey, listen, there's so much to play out as it relates to the wildfires in California. But having been, a leader in the recovery effort after Hurricane Katrina, after having been publisher of the newspaper during that time, writing the foreword to Haley's book on the subject, I have a good understanding of what an aftermath looks like, and have a good understanding of what it looks like to mitigate risks, and the insurance industry's role in that, and so on and so on and so on. So I watched what happened in California, and I have so many questions about how seriously they took insurance companies pulling out because the risks were too high. How seriously they they dealt with things like the fuel that existed in the forest, and they did not do a good job of urban/wildland interface, and they had many opportunities to take it more seriously, and they did not. So you just look at the way they didn't pre-position, knowing that this could have been a historic event. The mayor leaves. The governor's not doing. You think about before a hurricane, I think about is it related to Hurricane Katrina, what Governor Haley Barbour did, but then what Governor Reeves has done more recently in pre-positioning and all the work that MEMA does, and on to mitigate. I think that the microscope in California is not going to be good to those leaders.
It's not. I mean, one of the things that just jumps off the page is the lack of water and the lack of management of water resources. They're letting the environmentalists run this show here, and they have not done the proper, as a state, done the proper techniques to conserve their water, to pool their water, just allowing it to run out to the ocean. And so you had, I saw reports, you probably did too, the fire hydrants that had no water pressure, zero it up because there's no water there. For every aspect of conservation, of habitat management, of wildland management, has been done wrong in California. And I hate to see what's happening. It's a tragedy. And it's going to be a disaster for a long, long time for these people. But it is, in part, and in large part, I think, the result of bad policy that just has not been thought through.
Yeah. It speaks to years-long investment in the proper infrastructure and the type of emergency plans they needed. In Mississippi alone, man, the last data that I saw, we were preventive burning, over 200,000 acres a year. I mean, Mississippi has written the book on how to manage.
Our people get it. It is part of not only good practice, but it's public safety as well.
It's good for the environment. It's great for taking the forest fuels out of the forest. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I know that's a whole nother conversation, but I am deeply interested in it, and it will have huge national implications going forward. There's no doubt about it. As we'll continue our conversation with Andy Gipson after this break. Welcome back to the Ricky Matthews Show. Listen, we're having a conversation with Andy Gipson, excuse me, the Commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. Just one other quick comment about mitigation. We've learned a lot about that here in coastal Mississippi. We've had to build higher, build stronger. We've had to build infrastructure that can withstand future storms. The reinsurance markets, the markets that actually insurance companies go to get their insurance, have looked at coastal Mississippi very favorable as it relates to what we've done to harden and make ourselves more resilient. And in fact, with the most recent hurricanes, where they've driven far inland to places like North Carolina, for example, where these windstorms have been prevalent all the way, it's pressing all of us, even the rest of Mississippi, to consider stronger building codes. But that's the reality of mitigating risks. So when insurance companies tell you that we're going to increase rates, or you got to mitigate risk, or we're pulling out, and they say you can't increase your rates and we're not going to mitigate, they leave. And that's not the insurance company's fault. And man, the bell was ringing and nobody was hearing it. That's in California. We're trying to hear it in Mississippi. And as a result, hopefully we can continue to have an insurance market here that is a viable risk for insurance companies to do business here. That's so important, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's as important a piece of economic development and of quality of life as anything else to have a viable insurance industry. And Mississippi is getting it right.
Yeah, I think so too. So listen, as a commerce side to what you do, give people a sense of what that involves.
Well, we have these great farmers that are producing products, and Mississippi's number one product is poultry. Last year, it was another nearly $4 billion worth of poultry. We had another $1.5 billion of forest products. We had $1.3 billion worth of soybeans, and then cotton, 496 million, cattle and calves, 482 million. I could go on down the line, but these are products and they need to be sold. So we are, of course, in charge of making sure that all the proper channels of commerce are flowing, whether it's the fuel pumps to transport these products, or the sale of products internationally and export markets. We have seen a lot of rebounding from the COVID shutdown, if you will. Our number one export last year was cotton, and that was in an amount of almost $1 billion worth of cotton, $715 million worth of cotton that's come back. But actually, 1 out of every 3 acres in Mississippi of production is destined for an international market. So that's why it's so critical we get this trade deficit resolved at the national level, because that's a third of our markets for these products that we produce. We produce way more than we need to eat as a country and as a state, and we're thankful for that, but we need to sell these products. So we're engaged in that work, and that is one of the reasons why I'm headed down to Panama with another group of commissioners from around the country to find new markets and new avenues for commerce for our products in Central and South America. And I've got another trip or two planned for the year to again find a new and expanded markets. One of the largest expanding markets is India. I was there last year. It's now the largest country in the world. They love to eat chicken in India, and we love to sell it to them. So we're working on those types of deals. And then surprisingly, the fastest growing region of the world as a continent is the continent of Africa. So there's a lot of people that are there that are going to be needing food. And for the long term, it's one of the key areas that we'll be focusing on. To places like Europe, population's going down. Other places around the world, population is stagnant. So we're looking for these new areas, emerging markets, and we want to connect Mississippi products to those markets in a healthy and productive way.
It's going to be interesting to talk to you after you visit the Panama Canal. Who would have known? Once again, Trump puts it on the front burner. But who would have known that we were getting stiffed, the way we were?
It's a historic moment. It really is. So, yeah, I'll be glad to come back on, let you know how it went.
I bet it's going to be interesting. It'd be interesting what the talking points are for people who are dealing with you. Boy, I mean, the Panama Canal, let's face it. It's hugely important to Mississippi, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, it's the entire gateway to commerce to so many parts of the world that, without it, it would take 10 times as long and 10 times as much fuel to transport these products. So, we're working on all of that. We on top of all that, we're over the, Mississippi Fairgrounds, and we've got the Dixie National Rodeo coming up in February. It's shaping up to be yet another record Dixie National, so working on that as well. And we're just we do a lot, and it's not an exaggeration to say that the Department of Agriculture touches the lives of every Mississippian, whether you're filling up at the gas pumps, buying something that weighed with a scale, or whether you're checking out the grocery store. I mean, our folks do the important work to make sure the quality is there, the quantity, you're getting what you pay for, and that commerce keeps flowing in Mississippi. So we'll keep on keeping on. We're excited to about 2025.
Hey, it's going to be interesting. Hey, we've got less than a minute, but I see Shad White and Delbert kind of doing their thing back and forth. You're kind of out of the fray, but do I see governor in your future?
I get asked that question every single day, and my answer is I pray about it. But right now, I mean, I just got elected by the good people of Mississippi to do this job, so I feel like that's what I need to be doing. I'm doing my job, and that time will come at the right time, and we'll be making those decisions in the days ahead. But meanwhile, I'm praying and I'm doing my job. That's what I intend to do.
Well, thank you, Andy Gipson. It's been a pleasure to spend some time with you, my friend.
Thank you as well, Ricky. Appreciate you. God bless.
You bet. Same to you. This has been the Commissioner for Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce. Have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.